I just recorded one of my favorite episodes of housing news of all time. Today's guest was actually referred to me by two of my team members at HW Media, Jennifer Laws, who leads our sales organization, and Mike Simonson, the president and founder of Altos Research. They both suggested that I have to have Alex Villacorta on the Housing News podcast to learn more about his expertise in housing data and how he, as a co-founder and chief data officer at ResiShares, is applying housing data to make smarter investment decisions. ResiShares is specifically focused on the single-family rental asset class, and we go deep into his understanding and investment strategy of acquiring and operating and raising capital to own single-family rental assets and how they're applying data to educate a really smart and differentiated strategy. Alex has an incredibly impressive background in the housing industry with experience at some of the most innovative valuation and appraisal companies in the ecosystem. In his background with a PhD as a statistician, Alex approaches the housing ecosystem with a very different lens than many other guests that we have had on this show. In the second half of the episode, Alex goes out on a limb and makes some predictions for 2023 based off the data that he and his colleagues at ResiShares are analyzing and making bets on. I hope you enjoy this episode with Alex Villacorta, co-founder and chief data officer at ResiShares.
Hi, this is Sarah Wheeler, editor-in-chief of HW Media, and I'm talking to Ed Messman, CEO at Rook Capital, about their shared value investment program. Ed, what sort of investors are most interested and supportive?
Yeah, we're finding that there's three types of investors that are most interested. Those that care about housing affordability for this generation. Foundations, family offices are in that category. Secondly, those that care about their local communities, and those would be individuals, employers, that really are concerned about their local communities. And then lastly, just overall investors that are interested in the asset class of single-family, owner-occupied residential.
Thanks, Ed. And listeners, you can find out more at rook.capital.
Alex, thanks for joining me for an episode of Housing News.
Oh, yeah, great to be here, Clayton.
I'm thrilled that we're able to make this connection. I know that you've done work with Mike Simonson and the team at Altos Research over the years, and I'm happy that Mike and the Altos team were able to introduce us so we can have this conversation, as we're so passionate about not just the housing sector, but informed data, analytical views of what's happening in the housing ecosystem. And I think there's few people as prepared to have these conversations as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. And also been a fan of HousingWire for quite some time. I was a little self-promotion here. I think I was one of your inaugural rising stars, if I'm not mistaken, way back in the day.
Man, the award programs just keep reminding me that we are pretty good at picking award winners. I have even without trying, I've had so many rising stars and vanguards as guests on this show. I'm not even minding our winners list, but I think we've just identified some people who are making waves in the industry. So thrilled to hear that, Alex. So Alex, I want to spend some time. I want to learn about you and your career, but I want to kick off talking about ResiShares. So can you tell us about the business as it is today? Then I'm going to go back and dig into the founding story a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So ResiShares is an investment management firm. So really what we specialize in is in finding assets or homes, SFRs, that exhibit a whole host of desirable qualities from an investment point of view. Obviously, you want to have an asset that's yielding. You want to have an asset that's poised for growth in the future. And most importantly, you really want to find an SFR asset that is resilient to what we're seeing now, for example, and when you have different landscape changes in the economy. So the way we do that is we are a data-centric firm. And for those who know me and why I was working and following HousingWire from the beginning is I've spent my whole career looking at real estate data, pretty much from every which way direction, every source, every type, every facet of it. And in doing so, I've really learned how to read the data, or as I like to say, smell the dirt of what comes out in these different market signals. So we really wanted to harness that to make algorithmic and systemic investment decisions. And so we've done that. We have different asset managers that have been in this industry a long time, and that's what ResiShares is. So we've now been doing this for the last 3 years. We've raised up up to about 800 million in debt and equity to go out and buy these homes and invest. And it's been working quite well. Obviously, the market is on a little bit of a pause at the moment, but before things started to turn last year, we were able to really deploy our system and our algorithms to do this asset selection, which have proven to us that we've got something good here.
So Alex, when I explore the ResiShares site, I see some research, some tools to better understand the market. And so as you describe yourself as an asset manager, specifically for the SFR asset class, does that mean that you are actually like owner operator of single family assets, or is there a part of the business that's supporting other owner operators and investors that buy, build, and manage single family assets?
Yeah, great question. It's I would term it as maybe frenemies. There are things that we are competing with, say, the public SFR owner operators. And then there's other areas where we're collaborating with folks doing similar things. So how I would characterize ResiShares is that we are the owner operator. So we're picking the assets, we're acquiring the assets, and then we're managing the assets on behalf of the institutional capital. And in doing that, of course, because this is a nascent industry, a lot of us are all bumping into each other, and we need to leverage services, common services that exist today. And really, what is allowing the industry to thrive is those first movers in the market that are allowing the scattered site management to even work in the first place.
I feel like the term institutional gets used a little bit in a few different ways in the housing industry and in all industries. I mean, we can talk about like the insurance companies and the hedge funds and the asset managers who want to just deploy capital into an asset class, and others who want to have an operating entity and like that actually deploys capital and manages assets on its behalf. So when you talk about working with institutionals, are these primarily the asset allocators who want exposure to the SFR marketplace but never want to actually touch a key or smell that dirt?
100%, because that, as I think you're alluding to, it's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot that has to go into managing single family assets in its own right. Once you even pick the right asset, let alone pick the right asset that will yield and kind of check all the underwriting boxes. So 100%, we take on that work on behalf of those folks that want to deploy the capital and kind of keep their hands clean of all that dirt.
All right, Alex. So when I take a look at the team at ResiShares, I see that you have a few co-founders. So can we go back to, you said you've been in business 3 years. So let's go back to that like founding story. What was the inspiration for ResiShares, and what is the business model that you intended 3 years ago exactly where you ended up today?
Yeah, no, great question. So go back to early.
And 3 years ago, by the way, we are talking about like 2020, like an evolutionary time in the world and the housing industry.
That's right, 100%. So yeah, I was going to say, go back to 2020, early 2020, before the world kind of turned upside down. And I had been working in data analytics and valuation modeling for quite a long time up to that point. And I finally realized, I'm trying to evangelize the use of these automated technologies. I'm trying to evangelize the use of, data to drive decision-making and to inform on market dynamics and risk. And it's not that the audience wasn't receptive to that message in all my travels. It was that there was a hesitation that I often get the response of, hey, I respect what you're doing. I believe what you're saying, but I'm just not sure I'm willing to put my job on the line to, kind of have such a paradigm shift in how, we operate our business. And I get that, for a lot of these institutions, we're not talking, small potatoes here. These are major decisions that can have profound impacts. So enter 2020, I figured, you know what? I got to just eat my own dog food. If I'm going to, be out there promoting, the data future that is coming, then I should be able to put my money where my mouth is. And that's what we did. So early 2020, I partnered up with another HouseCanary alum, which is where I was before, Mike Green. And Mike Green called me up and said, hey, what do you think if we, again, eat our own dog food, but do it in a way where we can build a business that allows anybody to invest in real estate in a way that it really isn't accessible today. And to do that, obviously, we would need to create these ETFs or these funds or these securities that would allow anybody with any amount of capital. You don't need 300,000 to buy a house, but if you just had like 5,000 or 10,000 and you wanted exposure to a specific market, you could do that. Well, to get started in that, you don't just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you're on the New York Stock Exchange. You have to build a track record. You have to establish yourself as a successful owner operator. And most importantly, you have to be able to prove that your assets will return the yield that your data is modeling. And if you can do that, then yes, we will start to gain the attraction of the marketplace to say, hey, these guys know how to do this. All they need is scale and opportunity. And then, yes, we will be on the New York Stock Exchange. So that was always the vision and still is today, to provide these investment vehicles that could be democratized to everybody, not just folks that are sitting on $1 billion wanting to deploy into this asset class, but folks like, my brother, my family, and my, friends that, don't have that type of capital, but still want exposure into the real estate market. So we partnered with a couple other, as you're alluding to, on a couple other founders. So Dan Glazer is another one of our co-founders that comes from algorithmic investing and systematic investing. And that's, again, right what we're trying to do. We're trying to build or bring in the advancements in the equities market, a well-established market in terms of, this quantitative modeling, to the real estate. So he's been a tremendous addition to our team, as well as Michael Cook, who has seen probably more doors and more contractors and roofings and floorings and countertops and sinks than he'd like to remember. But he really is our expert for boots on the ground, understanding all the nuances of houses, tenants, renting, the whole kit caboodle. He's our expert on the team on those matters. So we felt like with the four of us, we each brought all the right components of what you would need to implement this vision. And of course, no one gets anywhere without a great team. We have 5 other amazing team members that help us implement this dream. And like I said, up until the last few months when the interest rates got a little wacky there, we've really been able to prove out the vision and really excited about where we're going.
That's interesting. So if I hear like kind of the North Star, is this to be able to offer publicly traded REIT assets that own portfolios of single family rentals?
Yeah, and just the nuance there, I was going to say, because one might argue, well, doesn't that exist today? And it does, but the difference being that when you come at it at a systematic lens, you're not just saying, well, I have a nationwide portfolio, I've got some Phoenix, Dallas, Atlanta, would you like to invest? Like that exists today, certainly. But what we're trying to say is there is nuance to the housing market, something that everybody understands. If you've ever been to a backyard barbecue party, you understand that everyone has a view on, the houses under the new development in the northwest part of the city, or, their cousin who's, got a great place outside of Vegas or whatever. Everyone has a story that just portends this nuance that we all understand in the market. We're trying to programmatically allow investment vehicles to take advantage of that. So we're taking this nationwide investment REIT structure idea and bringing it down to both geographic, but also thematic, and really allowing a investment opportunity into an asset class that right now is just kind of a one-size-fit-all opportunity.
Yeah, it's a funny part of housing is since it's tangible and we can all smell the dirt, and most of us live in a house. So I think a lot of people feel like they have a degree of expertise, and we can all look at the U-Haul data and see where people are moving or where they're leaving, and come up with some assumptions over where attractive markets may be. But it sounds like you're pointing toward a much more informed view of not just where population may be, but also how assets should be valued and when you're more or less aggressive in buying in certain markets. So Alex, if we, you think of like this, like potential and future REIT structure, how does owning single family rental assets through REIT differ from like owning the equity of a publicly traded owner operator?
I think obviously there's similarities, but, I think in our vision, really and I've said this a couple of times, like the systematic approach to investing. that we're trying to really eliminate a lot of that human element management that can make or break the difference in, some of these, equity-based investing, for example, in the public REIT companies. And that's where I think the nuance to say, well, hey, if of course, there's going to be some elements of the human management. You got to be able to manage, the boots on the ground. You got to be able to manage, a network of vendors and, obviously a wide network of tenants and that whole process. But even looking at those industries, you see that increasingly becoming more and more data driven. So as that happens, we're saying we can start to remove some of these human layers that have dominated real estate since the dawn of time, really, right? Like if you go back to even appraising, and we can talk about this in a minute, but even valuation still to this day is very human driven as far as, the using valuations for transactions. But it doesn't have to be that way. And it doesn't have to be that way now because, again, the data available to make these types of informed decisions is now available. So I think that's the real difference of what we're trying to offer versus, kind of what exists today for consumers.
So exploring the ResiShares website, come across some pretty cool content and tools. Like I was checking out the T-Rex page, and I'm, it's fascinating to see like your analysis of different markets and some of the indicators. Tell us more about T-Rex, and then also tell us more about like, what's the intent on like publishing that like type of resource? Is this like a glimpse into like the capabilities that ResiShares has and should attract me as a potential investor, or is there like a different end game of why you like kind of make that level of analysis and insight like publicly available?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of all that, I guess I would say. At its core and its genesis, the reason why we did this is because we're doing it anyways.
Yeah.
As I said, we're a data forward company, so we're looking at markets in every which way, as well obviously as the assets themselves. And so when we were discussing markets, we said, hey, this is such great information. Wouldn't it be interesting to release this out into the world so that others, as if we were sharing a beer, over a burger in the backyard, we could virtually share that conversation and our expertise to, the world. And, we're all, a lot of us at ResiShares, we're sports junkies. We track a lot of sports metrics. Obviously, there's another dinosaur score out there that is very popular in the basketball arena, which is I'm quite a fan of. And so we wanted to, kind of have a similar score for markets that can relate, that can help people relate to something that they know. So for example, we all might have our favorite sports team and of the sports era. And you might say, who was, I'm trying to think of a sports star, date myself a few years back, but maybe like a Pau Gasol and the Lakers, a big man who, won a few championships, but, maybe not as flashy as some of these other players, but that player very well. And you want to say who today is most similar to that player, because when you make that connection, you have a foundation for what you know, and then you're able to bring in something that you do not know, but that relation allows you to quickly understand the position or the opportunity or the potential of a market, in our case, to something So for example, in our latest T-Rex model, we have a market like Tampa. Tampa, Florida has been one of the hottest SFR markets for a long time, for a few years now. And our T-Rex score suggests that it will continue. Some of the comps for T-Rex are like Miami back in pre-pandemic, Denver back in the middle teens. Like if you were in Denver if you were able to buy a house in the, let's say 2014, 2015 in Denver, compared to now, you're obviously very happy about that call. If I can now tell you that Tampa today is exhibiting the same types of trends and patterns as Denver did in 2015, well, oh boy, wouldn't that be interesting from an investment point of view, and even a home buyer point of view, looking to move to an area that kind of secures their own personal investment. And that was really the goal with T-Rex, is to be able to give that similarity to the general public and kind of have all of our data and analytics behind the scenes to inform that similarity. But at the end of the day, just allow people to type in the market that they know and see what comps or what other markets are most similar to that over both time and geography.